Alright, hey guys, welcome back. It's Jen with Happy Humble Home, and today we're going to be debunking another homeschool myth. So, before we jump into that, go ahead, click that subscribe button if you haven't yet. Ring that little bell so that way you get notified of the videos here on the channel. And I've also noticed that a lot of my subscribers only make up like 4% or something like that, like drastically low of the amount of people that actually view my videos. So, if this channel has content that you would like to keep seeing, please go click that subscribe button if you haven't now. And like I said, if you ring the bell, then you get notified whenever I upload videos. I promise I don't blow up the feed uploading a whole lot. So yeah, let's just go ahead and do that, and then let's jump into the video where we debunk homeschool myths. Alright, hey guys, welcome back. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our second topic for debunking homeschool myths. And today we have Claire with us. So before we jump into what the actual topic is, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Claire, and I have 3 boys going into 7th grade, 3rd grade, and kindergarten. Oh. And we've been homeschooling the whole time, and now the baby is like a school-aged child, and that feels like fun. Like we're all homeschooling now. That's good.
It'll be good. All
yeah.
right. So our topic today is going to be, you need a teaching degree to be able to homeschool. So is that a myth or is that a fact?
Oh, it's a myth for sure.
Definitely a myth. You would know. You would be the one to know, right? For sure. So why do you say that's a myth?
Okay, so I went to college to be a teacher. I taught for a year in public school. And it was a beautiful year, and the Lord grew me a lot, and I got to love on kids a lot. And then after that, I worked at a homeschool co-op for like 4 or 5 years at Faith Tutorial. Oh. And so I worked there for like 4 or 5 years, and I did not grow up around homeschooling kids, and so I didn't know anything about it until a friend said, you would really love to teach here. And so I did, and I loved it, and I got to watch families homeschool and think, I didn't even know. I grew up in a small town, and so everybody just went to public school. Right. That's just what school looks like. There were choices about school. You just went to the public school, you know? And so anyway, watching these other families homeschool, I thought this would be really fun to get to do. I could teach my own kids, and I could teach them every year. And the things that I knew that they were good at, we could look at that, and the things that they were weak in, well, it's just me one-on-one with them, you know, or, you know, 2 or 3 of us together. And so I thought, man, they would just be so seen and taken care of, and like you could just tailor everything to what they needed. And watching the families be close to each other, older siblings and younger siblings, they were making memories together and not individual memories. And so I felt like these families that I was getting to help serve, like, were just closely connected. The moms knew and loved the kids loved to spend time as a family. And so that was the first time that I thought, oh, like schooling can be different than just everybody go to public school, you know. And so that's what got my wheels turning. But I went to public school, taught in public school. I like, you know, went to college to be a teacher, and so I have all this like ideas in the back of my head of like, this is what school looks like. And then, you know, you start homeschooling yourself, and you're like, I don't know any more than anybody else. Like, every year,
need a teacher's book. Give me the teacher's book.
I'm like, every year it's new. Every year it's humbling for me, because our oldest is always in a higher grade every year. So this year, I mean, every time somebody asks what 7th grade going to look like, I'm like, I don't know. I've never taught 7th grade.
We'll figure it out, right?
I'm going to plan a little over the summer, and then we'll see what happens. So anyway, it's humbling, but I think for me, I had to work to undo a lot of like defining what school is in my mind. I had to work to undo a lot, because growing up, it looked like being in a classroom from, you know, 8 o'clock until 3 o'clock. And it looked like a lot of textbooks, and it looked like a lot of worksheets, and it looked like sitting at a desk, being inside. And so that's just what I thought a school day looked like. And then I got home with my kids, and I thought, I love you, and I know you, and this doesn't have to take very long, and I can do fun things with you, and we can read really fun books and just enjoy time together, you know?
Yeah, that's one thing I always talk about on here too. It's like every season looks different, and it's funny because you're okay to say that to somebody else, but then to like give yourself that grace during that season, you're like, yeah, but I feel like I'm like, that's wrong.
That's
right. Like, that's wrong. Like, I wasn't even in public school for that many years, but I'm like, I see the way it's supposed to go.
That's right.
And I'm like, but does it though?
That's right.
Like, no, but yes. And yeah, I always talk about how I have to unschool my mind.
Yes.
And I guess we fall more into like your traditional school. Like we do the textbooks. We have roughly the time we're going to start, like, you know, general time we're going to start in the morning. And then by the time we're done, and that's our day. And they have certain things they have to get done. But I'm like, that still looks very broad compared to what you would be used to in a textbook world, you know, like in a public school setting. So, and I guess like for your kids, they don't know any other way, right? Like it's always been
we've
just
always
at home.
homeschooled. Yes. And you're right about like every year you just kind of have to look at the whole situation and see, you know, there in those early years, I had a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a new baby. And so all those people get factored into the decision making too, because it's like, they're all part of the family. And so you can't do any school stuff that's too complicated. It's going to take a long time because the 2-year-old or 3-year-old is just not going to hang with that. And so that was another one of those things that I had to kind of like change my thinking on, because the year that our oldest was in 1st grade, at the very end of August of that school year, we had a new baby. And so like for the whole school year, like August 25th on, we had a new baby the entire time. And I remember thinking, for you to feel happy and peaceful and enjoy this year, you're gonna have to keep it really simple. So I just go back to like reading, writing, math when they're little, like reading, writing, math, the 4 R's. Like if we can pull that off. And I know some kids in school, even when I taught in public school, here's a specific example. When I taught in public school, the kids had spelling, and we had spelling tests, you know, like just simple 3-letter words, but they had to have a spelling test every week. And I was like, I simply do not have time to teach spelling in the day. And so we just didn't do spelling in 1st grade. And I just thought, I think he's going to be fine. But there was this like, I don't know if we don't do spelling in 1st grade. Are we setting ourselves up for failure? And so anyway, the Lord was just like, no, you're going to be fine. So it was sweet to see. We did not start spelling as early as most people. Then in 2nd grade, those simple 3-letter words that he had read and sounded out, he knew how to take those sounds and build the word. And I thought, you didn't even really have to have that at this point. It's fine. So we started off a little behind, but like picked up, the pacing went faster because he was a little older. And so then we caught up within a school year or a school year and a half, something like that. And I thought I wouldn't trade that decision for anything, because I enjoyed the new baby. I enjoyed the 3-year-old who was like being potty trained at the same time. You're like,
oh,
we didn't learn spelling, but we did like feed a new baby and potty train someone.
You had to give him life skills, like how to help with your siblings. That's a life skill. So, especially being the oldest, like they always have to end up helping, like with the siblings, and that's good because again, like you said, they're close-knit families, and it's just it's such a blessing. It's definitely. The boys do not miss public school.
I bet.
So that's, looking back, I'm like, I don't know if it's would have been better for the boys not to go in public school, but like Nathan and Nicholas obviously weren't in public school. And then the youngest one, like, he's never been, like, he doesn't remember any of that, which, you know, it's okay with. So I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So one thing too that people talk a lot about, you have to have the teaching degree. Like, was your teaching degree like K through 6 or K through 8?
It was K through 6.
Okay, so K through 6.
So now I have no teaching degree from here on out, Jennifer. It's like all downhill from
all
here.
downhill. Yeah, see, so that's where it all goes downhill, right? It's like a lot of people, I guess, and you can set me right if I'm wrong, but for like the K through 6 in like college, when that's what you're set to teach, you're not in an actual subject, right? Like,
that's right.
People feel like if you're a math teacher, then that means you know all the math things, when in fact you're like, I just take the math book and teach what the book tells me, right?
That's
like,
right.
That's the way it is with everything. So I think some people, they always feel like they're the expert in that subject. And I'm like, I don't think so. So see, okay, so I wasn't wrong whenever that's what I thought. Because I know teachers, and I was around a lot of teachers when I was finishing up my business, the associates in business,
there was all like leaving the teaching world to go to business, or leaving the business world to go to teaching. Like it was always teachers on the other end, one end of the spectrum. So I'm like, I'm missing something, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's funny. Even when I taught in public school, I taught first grade. So any math, I could add 3 plus 4, you know.
Right, yes.
But it was such a busy day that I did not really have time to specifically look at lesson plans super thoroughly before the next day's school. And, you know, you would have kids that would come to your classroom at 7:30 in the morning, and they didn't leave till like 3:30. And then it would have taken me at least 2 hours to like read through all the lessons ahead of time.
Yeah.
So most every day there was some subject that I thought, I have not even read through this lesson in a very close reading way. I've probably skimmed it a little bit, so I know what's coming next. But I learned by doing, and even now at home, I have not outgrown that. And in some ways, I'm like, I would be a better teacher if I knew what was coming. So for the other 2 kids that are coming, I'm like, I've actually done this math lesson before, y'all.
Like,
this is going to be so good.
Yeah.
But for our oldest, he'll say, Mommy, what is the math lesson like today? And I will say, buddy, I have not looked at it. We're going to learn it together.
Yes.
And I think in some ways there's a lot of like freedom and grace and fun to just say, because I'm put in that position, it makes me be like a student still with him.
Yes.
And I don't forget like what it feels like to learn something, because I am learning something with him. And
it's one of those, like, if you don't use that subject or that topic every day, you're
that's
like,
right.
Totally forgot. Like, I know, like, you're always taught what the powerhouse of the cell is, or, you know, but to actually know what it actually does, you're like, I don't remember that. But luckily, we're going to figure it out together.
That's right.
Because that was the same thing with the oldest one, like, because he's starting 9th grade now, and then one's coming up to 7th, and then 3rd. So I'm like, I remember, like, at least teaching you this, and then every child is different too.
That's
like,
right.
Every child, you almost have to think of a different way to teach it for them to understand it. So it's like, you know, in the classroom setting, which that's what a lot of people talk about, is you can't actually cater to every single child just because there's too many kids in a class and not enough time in the day, and like, you know, just all the factors that go into it that makes it a lot easier to know your own kid. You know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, and you know how to cater to that in a much easier way without having to be a expert in it. Because I mean, really, unless you teach college level, and I guess even then, like, I don't know what their degrees are to make you actually teach college level, but I'm assuming then you would be more of a mathematician. And I'm not trying to write a math book. Let's just say that. Like, I'm not the one out there trying to create new curriculum based off that. And then
I think sometimes, like, when you come to it thinking you're the expert, there are lessons that you might miss learning yourself alongside with your kids.
Oh, yeah.
And so for me, I mean, even something as simple as kindergarten, 1st grade math, I feel like this whole process of homeschooling has just been a journey for me where I am learning as much as they are. And I'm just like learning to look at the world in a different way, look at creation and say, like, boys, every bit of this points to the Lord. And like, let's see how. And he made all this and it's beautiful, and let's enjoy it and learn from him. And that was the first subject that I could like connect back to the Bible really easily. But then I thought, well, he's made everything, so he's in everything. The stories that we read, there's some way that can point back to him. And we were doing a math lesson. I think our oldest was like maybe 1st grade or something, and maybe 2nd grade, because I remember thinking, like, Lord, how math, like, how do I connect you to math? Like, 3 plus 4 is 7.
Yes.
How do I add you in here? And then I looked at our son and I was like, buddy, isn't it nice to know that God is so orderly that 3 plus 4 is always going to be 7? Like, that is just orderly. Every time it's going to be that. And I thought, just like that, kind of like awaking some wonder in my own heart to see the Lord in all of this. That's what this, like, the teaching degree that I'm like kind of putting to the side, and like just enjoying learning, being a learner right next to them, thinking when I come to this thinking I know it all, that I'm closed off to seeing other little lessons like 3 plus 4 is 7. I knew that part, but I didn't like thank the Lord that I could see a glimpse of his orderliness in a simple math fact, you
like
know?
Yes, the consistency. Like, math is very consistent, where everything else you feel is like kind of ebb and flow a little bit. Like, math is always consistent, because one of Nicholas's math books, I don't remember which one, but it talked about a certain mathematician, and I can't even remember now what it talked about, but it, but basically, like, the way the honeycombs are, and like the order that they're always in, and again, like the consistency, and everything, the snowfleks, the honeycombs, like all of it, it's all, and it's like, and it's math, but it's all together, but it all, like you said, it all points back to the Lord, and it's very fun to see those things, because otherwise you're just drowning in math facts.
Yes,
right?
no, you gotta bring some purpose and some meaning to this. Besides just that, even this year we were studying the periodic table. And I like biology, sciences. I don't really like chemistry, physical science. Nothing excites me there. But I was like, Lord, it just means I need to learn something. And so let me be humble. Let me be a learner with the boys, and show me what you have to show me in this. And we were reading this little read aloud that went along with the periodic table. And it was talking about how they like first started finding and discovering elements, and how the periodic table developed. But you know, all the elements have an atomic number with them. And so you might have number 33, but then you might have like number 37, and there's a gap in these numbers. The scientists studying this, even though they were not all believers, knew that if there's a 33 and there's a 37, that means there's 34, 35, 36 in there. And I just thought, look, these scientists know the orderliness and the pattern, and they can believe and see things that they have not seen with their eyes, but it's like they know it's got to be there, because they can see glimpses of the orderliness in every other way. So it's like, if we just haven't discovered these elements here, it's our fault that we haven't found them yet. They just exist, we just haven't found them yet.
We haven't.
So you're like, the Lord can use anything to like show who he is, you know. And I think that's been this journey of education, is this, like, what's the purpose of it all? You know, is the purpose to like have these standards that the state sets, that says every third grader needs to do these things right here? And is that what drives all of this, is just striving to hammer these standards into people because they're a certain grade level? Is that what this is supposed to look like? Or is it just this like delightful, life-giving journey that we're all on, that I hope I don't outgrow and they don't outgrow, just like learning who the Lord is and the world that he's made for us to learn about him and enjoy him. And if the purpose is for me to hopefully point to him over and over and over again, so that they know him and love him and believe in him, then it looks like a totally different day. There's so much more joy in that, and there's so much more
grace. Like, you don't have to be so fixated. Like, it'll be okay, because again, like, as an adult, you kind of know the things that will help them on their journey, whatever that journey looks like whatever path they seem to be going down. As long as, like we always say, that as long as the boys are, as long as they are independent, responsible adults, that's all I really care about.
That's
like,
right.
Whatever their GPA is, whether they actually use this level math or not.
That's right.
Whatever, it really doesn't matter, as long as you like have your head on straight, you know your focus, and then trust that God will lead you wherever you need to be. Then that's all that truly matters. You know, it doesn't matter what your GPA was in high school, right?
That's
like,
right.
It doesn't matter.
That's right. I can't even remember it. You know, like, I can't even remember it.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the, like I said, it's definitely been eye-opening for me to be able to, like you said, learn alongside the children, because that's, with the boys, I'm always, because my middle one, he always likes to be like, like, anytime he doesn't want to do the textbooks, it's always like, excuse me, it's always like, you say that learning's more than textbooks. I'm like, it is, but we've also been given textbooks to help us learn, so you're right. Yes, but it does help us, because some things it's easier to see in a textbook, and it's easier to explain it, whereas some things it's easier to go outside and do nature walks, and you get a lot more hands-on science than looking at the picture of the flower in the book. Look at the flower outside. You know, like, it's kind of a checks and balances here. You gotta you know, like take both. And again, that's where different homeschool styles come in differently, because some people lean more structured with books and then not. And it's funny because I don't know if it's the same with you, but when we first started homeschooling, I look back and I kind of cringe because of the way I had things set up. You're like, all right, here's the desk. That we're facing a wall.
Oh.
Like, oh my gosh. I'm like, why did I put my kids facing a wall? Like, that's just horrible. Like, at least give them a view, right? Like, you know, and like things like this, I can see where I'm just like, yeah, let's move these. Oh, let's do this. And I'm like, why did I even do that?
I
like,
know.
Seriously. But it's like, it's a learning process, and every season is different, and thankfully, Lord willing, I will not quit unschooling my own mind.
That's right.
And that's what it'll eventually maybe be this revolving door. I don't know. Maybe, right? Or like it all, like you said, as long as it all circles back to seeing God in everything, and that's really the only purpose, like, you know.
I feel like I have a friend that homeschools too, and she started homeschooling the same year that I did, and our kids are similar ages. And both of us said 5 years in. So that's some years, you know, 5 years in. I've been doing this. We just finished, Charles Hayes was in 6th grade, so we've been homeschooling for 7 years. So 5 years into this, we were finally like, I feel like I trust the Lord with my kids. Finally. Like, I don't feel like I'm like, we've got to get all these things done. And and it's still a process to like learn that. I still am like learning to trust him with them. But I think for so long, I just wanted to like pretend in my heart that I wasn't still like this formal school setting, be it public school or private school or anything. I feel like I had it in the back of my head, like whispering like, this is what the day really is. Yeah. And you're not getting close to that at home. And I still had this like little external pressure that I couldn't just shake off and say, it doesn't matter. Here's the day that I've been given. Here are the kids that I have that are these ages. And so to be a good steward of what I've been given, schooling needs to look like this right now. Yes. Maybe no spelling in 1st grade. Or maybe, maybe, I don't know, we just, the flexibility and the freedom to just think like that little voice of a traditional school classroom probably stuck with me for 5 years of just like, here's what I think I should do, but here's this other expectation in the back of my head that still makes me feel like I'm not measuring up to it, you know?
And it's like, as an adult, you're always told, like, it's easy to say, oh, kids learn at different paces. Like, you say that, and you tell it to somebody else, but when you're like, wait, I should be doing, but then, okay, so you teach differently. So it's that weird, like, it's okay to say it, or it's not right, depending on who you're talking to. I guess it's either okay to say it or not okay to say it when you're talking about kids learning to read or doing spelling, right? Because Joshua never did spelling either. Because I'm like, again, 1st, 2nd, and kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade both. My main focus was reading, writing, and math. Like that was my main focus, because that's what's, you know, that's what I feel like would be the strongest foundation. Because after teaching the older boys like the science, I'm like, okay, we get a little bit more information every year, but a lot of it's just snowballs. That's why I'm like, okay, we'll just start snowballing when you're in 3rd grade. That's right. 1st grade. It's okay. It'll be all right.
Yeah. And even that skill of like, we're going to go out in nature and we're going to look for things. It takes patience and it takes attention to see those things. And you know, I'm sure y'all have had the experience of when you go out with other kids that don't spend time in nature, they think there's nothing there to be seen. And they're just like running down the path and they're loud, and you think any cool bird we could have seen or any bunny rabbit or deer, you've just scared them off. You know, like
gone,
you don't know how to take a nature walk. You just go slowly, and in a world that's fast paced, that's like looking at a lot of screens, to get outside and like feel the sunshine and go slowly and enjoy things. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I think that's where all the kids are now. Somewhere outside. They're somewhere around here. It's okay. They're around here somewhere. But definitely. So, is there any other parts, I guess, of this, like of the teaching degree, or like any other ways, or anything else you would like to share that, points to everything?
Yeah.
Again, it's all kind of like, anyway, it's all over the place.
Yeah. I think, you know, in scripture it tells us to like love God and love other people, and I think you could take that very same basic idea and just say that's what my homeschooling should look like.
Yep.
Loving God and trusting him for the work that he's going to do in your kids' lives, and seeing that you get to come alongside him and point him out in all these ways.
Yeah.
And if we love him, and then if we ask him to help us love the people around us, then that's just homeschooling. Like, love God and love the people around you, and then from there on he'll like show you what that needs to look like for your family, and how to serve and love and care for all the kids and all the ages and stages that you're in. The year, I think it was maybe the year before I started teaching, I was reading through the book of Deuteronomy, believe it or not, and there's a verse, there are a couple of verses in here. It's Deuteronomy 32, and I read these words and I thought, oh, that like I could teach like this, and it's just still a prayer of my heart, because I'm not there, but that the Lord would like get me closer to being a teacher like this. But it just says, it's Deuteronomy 32, verses 2 through the beginning of verse 4. It says, let my teaching fall like rain, and my word settle like dew, like gentle rain on new grass, and showers on tender plants. For I will proclaim the Lord's name, declare the greatness of our God. The rock, his work is perfect, all his ways are just. And I just think like rain is so gentle, but it's so nourishing, and like rain on tender grass, it just makes me think of like, you know, this little kindergartner that's trying to learn to read, and it's so hard for them. It's hard work for them. It's hard work for me to be patient. I've just learned, fix myself a cup of coffee or hot tea and just settle in, because it's not going to be a fast process.
Right.
And so just enjoy it, but just that like my teaching would be gentle and life-giving and nourishing. And then later on, I think this was like 3 years ago, years after that, I was reading the book of Mark just real slowly, a chapter or so. I would spend a day or two on a chapter. But Mark 4, verse 26 and 27 says, the kingdom of God is like this, he said. A man scatters seed on the ground. He sleeps and rises night and day. The seed sprouts and grows, although he does not know how. And I like that so much, because all the farmer does, all the man does is just scatter seeds. So I'm like, we're going to learn about the Lord in math. He's orderly, he's consistent, he's trustworthy. And then we're going to go out in nature and look at him there. And I'm just scattering seeds. Everywhere. And then he goes to sleep at night. And so that's the part that I struggle with the most, is just the going to sleep at night and resting, that it's like, okay, Lord, we're not going to do spelling, but we're going to be okay. Or, you know, we are weak in this area right here, and hopefully I'm not messing them up to where like they want to do something in life that they're gonna say, well, I can't do this thing because my mom wasn't a good enough teacher, and so I'm held back in whatever thing. And so I can definitely let those thoughts kind of like swirl in my head, you know. But I'm like, look, this farmer, he just scatters the seed, and then he goes to sleep, and he gets up the next day, and he just does the task that's in front of him. And I think I should just pray more that I would be able to just rest and like just go to sleep. Like, I've done the only thing I've been called to do. I've been faithful and obedient to the task today, which is to teach them to the best of my ability right now what's before us. And then I know that the Lord knows exactly what they're going to do career-wise for the rest of their life. And so even though I can't see that, he's preparing them, and you know, I can
have
just
to trust that like whatever you're doing is exactly what you need to be doing, and leave the rest to the Lord. Like, as they get older, that seems like it's harder and harder to do, as you seem like becoming more and more independent. It's like, which that's a good thing, because that's how it's supposed to be. That's how God designed it, for them to become more independent. But then that's like requires a different level of trust.
That's right.
You're like, this is difficult.
And I feel like the higher the grades get up, the more competitive it feels, that you're like, oh, these children are writing 5-page papers with, I don't know, citing all of their work. And I think we haven't done that. Or they're doing a science fair. And we haven't done that, you know, because I don't think I would feel at peace if I had that many balls I was juggling.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of, everybody's schooling gets kind of simplified, and
Yep.
hopefully that'll be okay.
Yeah.
The verdict is still out. You know?
No.
Come back in 10 years and then
we'll
I'll
let you know once the first one's like out of the high school.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely the same way, because like there's so many opportunities and so many resources out there, which is a great thing, because it, again, that can really fit into whatever your routine or what you're trying to accomplish or what your goal is. Like Melody said in the other video, like just have your your motto and just your focus. Always send it back to your focus, whatever that is, and like all the resources and stuff, especially like, you know, like when you're doing pre-K or kindergarten, I'm like, all the things, you're like, it'll be okay.
Literally, I got on Rainbow Resources website and typed in math curriculum kindergarten, and it was like 37 pages worth, and I thought, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, I can't look through 37 pages worth
Yes.
of math curriculum. That's overwhelming. And so I just called a friend who had someone 1 year ahead of me and was homeschooling, and I said, what math do you do? Because I think I'm just going to probably do what you do, so that I have a real life person who's a year ahead of me. And I did, and it was a fine decision. I'm like, that is just fine. So anyway, but it can feel so complicated to have all those options.
Yes.
That you're just like, well, what's the right one? You know?
Yeah, it's like whatever the right one is where your kid's at and what your day looks like, and that's the right one. We're gonna go with that
degree does not help you get that answer. I'm like, I'm just overwhelmed, because as a teacher, they hand you the curriculum, and like that, you don't make that decision. You know, on my end of things, I make it every year.
So going back to the teaching degree for the curriculum, but I know other teachers that they said that like they kind of have an input a little bit on the curriculum as far as like, do y'all like this? But ultimately, it's not your decision, right?
That's right.
It's ultimately the school boards.
That's right.
Is
They
it the
buy
school
all the
boards,
books,
or is it the states?
I think it's the school boards. I think each school board can pick things. I think that's how it worked. It was probably, let's see, how many years ago did I teach?
Yeah, I was like, it's gonna be about
15 years ago that I taught in public schools. But at that point, the school board decided everything.
I think it was the same, because I know, like I said, I know other teachers that are currently still teaching in Tennessee and ones that are in others, and it seemed like they was given the text. So their input, depending on your school board, can either have a lot of weight or no weight, kind of. And again, that fluctuates from county to county, school board to school board. So there's a lot of ebb and flow in that statement. So,
and in my experience, once they got the textbooks and bought, 100 or 200 textbooks, if the teachers didn't love the textbooks, it was kind of like, well, we've paid the money, so like tweak them, or I don't know, this is just what you get. We don't have money to like rebuy a new book the next year.
You just have to check the box for what they need to know to pass the standardized test, basically.
That's right.
So whether like that's skip lessons, because that's one thing I did not expect when my kids were in school, or even when I was in public school for the couple of years, was how much of the textbook was not actually taught. So I'm like, so I have no guilt whenever we don't finish the entire book. I'm like, that's all right. Like, we still did other things in language arts or math or whatever, right?
I can still remember teachers when I was in 3rd and 4th and 5th grade growing up, and them saying, we're just going to skip that whole math chapter. Yeah. And it didn't bother me a bit.
You're like, yes.
But now I'm like, skip a math chapter? Can we skip a math chapter? And I'm like, of course.
You're like, are we allowed that? I don't think so.
Right.
Yes, so.
I think homeschooling moms can put a lot of pressure on themselves, to...
But then if you talk to another mom, they're like, oh, seriously, you're doing fine. Like, just forget it. And you're like, well, yeah, I would say that to you, but I don't want to say that to myself.
Right.
You're like, that's not fair.
Right.
Like, you feel like you're fudging the system too much, so to speak. But in reality, again, it's trusting that the Lord will lead them where they need to be, whatever that looks like, and learning to comes with like as they get older, you can see the subjects that they do or don't learn. So like you can kind of see, well, I mean, they don't love writing, so they're not going to be a writer.
Right. That's
like
right.
Early on, like you can see early on, like yes, you need to of just again figuring out what it is. And I know there's a lot of, I know that I was talking to someone else the other day, and she mentioned that she personally knew several teachers that were transferring their own kids to homeschooling, or ones that have homeschooled for years and then didn't do it, or got their degree and then decided otherwise. And you know, you always hear about those families that either do or don't succeed or whatever, and I'm like, but you never really have a way to tell, like, if you took homeschooler X that in somebody else's eyes didn't succeed or struggled more, but then you put them in like a traditional school system, would it have been the same? Like, there's no way to actually measure
see both sides. That's right.
You know, I'm like 2 out of 4, like that's great, and then others, it's you never actually know. So again, like we talked about, I think we mentioned it in the video with Melody, like just the different. Every child is different. So whatever that looks like, it's again, it will all circle back to. It'll be okay.
That's right.
It'll all circle back to being okay. And there goes the kids. See, it's a beautiful day outside. Let's say that. So do you have any other final thoughts or anything?
Let's see. I feel like one other thing that I feel like I struggled with early on in homeschooling is comparing myself to other families on a bunch of different ways. But the friends that we were around, there were like 3 families that played together when the boys were real little. And then everybody went to kindergarten, and we were the only ones that homeschooled.
Right.
And the other families went to private school. And for us, private school would not be an option unless I taught there, and that covered the tuition for the kids. But we wanted more kids. And so then I would think, okay, but the first grade year I have an infant, so I can't go to I can't teach that year and put this baby in daycare. I'd rather be home with everybody, and so we just homeschooled. And it's sweet that the Lord, like, you know, there's a part I think in Psalms that says, like, the boundary lines for me have fallen in pleasant places, and I have a rich inheritance indeed. And so for the first couple of years of homeschooling, I thought the boundary lines have fallen for these people in pleasant places because they either have the financial resources, or the grandparents have the financial resources to send these kiddos to school. And now the moms are like getting to this phase of life where they're dropping people off, and then they have all this freedom and flexibility during the day to cook dinner or go get groceries or clean their house. And I'm doing all this with a 3-year-old and a baby and a 7-year-old at home, you know. And I remember for a couple of years just thinking, like, Lord, you're going to have to do some work in my heart, because I can look on the outside and the grass seems greener. And I know that's not true. And so that's been another thing that's been a sweet way the Lord has, like, given me what is good. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. And He has changed my heart a lot in homeschooling, just like being selfless and loving my kids more than I ever would, and valuing them more than I ever would if I was just, I mean, not that it's wrong to drop people off anywhere, but for me it's just like, oh, I know you and I see you and I enjoy time with you, and I think I've learned that that time is precious. And so so I think even having to undo my teaching background and say, we can make this life look however we want. Like, let's just make it feel really natural that we get up and we just learn together. And we have math textbooks and grammar textbooks, and we do some worksheets, but that we're together, and it just feels like
life.
Yes.
It's life. Like, you always hear this phrase, the homeschooling is not about the school part, it's about the home part. And that is so true. Just because some days it's one of those days, you know, and you're just like, you know what? It's one of those days. Everybody's just having one of those days. So you're like, let's just take a step back and it'll be okay.
It's like, just trust Him, because I can compare a traditional school, I can compare a private school, and then I can just not be able to rest and go to sleep at night like the little sower here. But I think that was another thing that the Lord took years, probably 2 or 3 years for me to just say, I am glad that he has given me the life that he's given me. It's good, and I love being able to spend time with my kids and be the one that teaches them. And I can just see, like, just like you said, like the schooling is a thing that we do have to like spend some time and attention on, but mostly it's just like all of us growing and our hearts changing together, and that's been really sweet. And so just trusting that every little thing that he gives you is good, and
It'll work together.
that's right.
Right?
That's right.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so this is, so that wraps up the second video. If you haven't watched the first one, I'll be sure to leave that little iCard there, or you can click it in the playlist at the end of this video. Thank you so much, Claire, for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, those are
Like
fun.
always, there's probably in the background. It's all good. As always, if y'all have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them in the comment section below. And also, if you have any other topics that you would like to see us discuss, then make sure you leave those in the comment section below. And I will check in with y'all later. Have a good one.